Members, we've already formed a quorum, and it's also for us to start. So let's start. First item on the agenda, confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of October. We have not received any proposal for amendment or any other comments. So can we have the minutes confirmed? Thank you. Matters arising. Last time, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong mentioned a duty visit to Taiwan. Members, what do you think concerning creative industries and innovation and technology? Taiwan is not the most advanced jurisdiction. Mr. Shin Xiong Kai, Mr. Chairman, I encountered you and raised this with you. I did visit Taiwan. Although Taiwan has its own characteristics and there are also things to learn, individual members can actually visit Taiwan on their own. Arrangements may pose challenges, and it's probably worthwhile to visit it. But if you would like to observe science and technology in Taiwan, you may want to visit the top-notch companies in Taiwan. Sometimes U.S. companies buy Israeli companies. So Israel is also worthy of our visits. It also has a great deal of state-of-the-art technology, and Israel does not have a huge population. It's quite similar to Hong Kong in many respects. It does not have very rich natural resources. So there are a number of aspects to compare with Hong Kong. So perhaps we can consider Israel as well. Colleagues, what do you think? In fact, innovation and technology are rather advanced in Belgium as well. Mr. Andrew Leung, well, Taiwan does have state-of-the-art science and technology. We do understand their history of development. If the government is willing to invest a great deal of money, you can, of course, do it. Hong Kong government is not willing to invest money into this. Northern Europe is also worthy of our observation. South Korea is also a good choice. So I think we should choose a jurisdiction that suits us. Time is rather limited. So if we really want to have a duty visit, we should choose the best jurisdiction. Mr. Andrew Leung, Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Mr. Andrew Leung mentioned a number of jurisdictions that have performed well in this regard. South Korea is really a good choice. They are very dedicated to specific areas. They don't do everything. Take, for example, computer simulated design. That's also a good choice. Israel invests a great deal into science and technology. Every year, I believe they are spending 5 to 6% of their GDP on science and technology. Both jurisdictions have their government strongly support industries and creative industries. In that regard, how can the SARG participate more? By support, I mean more resources and support should be given to our industries. I think we should not consider visiting more than one jurisdiction. Rather, we should just choose one jurisdiction and see what we can learn from it. All right, any other comments? Of course, if you want to choose a nearer place, South Korea is nearer. In Israel, they do have very advanced, innovative industries. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was late. Are we picking a jurisdiction to visit? At the last meeting, Mr. Wong Ting-kwang mentioned that even in the last term, we mentioned visiting Taiwan to observe their innovative technology. And just now, Mr. Jeffrey Lam mentioned South Korea as a better choice. And then further, we have Israel and Belgium. So it's for members to decide. Number one, do we need to pay a duty visit to these jurisdictions with advanced science and technology and innovation technology? And then if we decide on a visit, where should we go? A nearer place or a farther place? Ms. Emily Lau, well, the Israeli Consul General came to talk to me recently. He really wants us to visit the country. It seems that Ms. Wong, the commissioner, visited Israel recently. I haven't been there. I understand that after Tong Chi-hwa and Richard Lee came back from Israel, they created the cyber port. Well, Mr. Chairman, on what basis should we make this decision? Well, later I'll contact the Consul General as well. For example, the University of Science and Technology has proposed Israel and Belgium to me for innovative industries. Taiwan may be a bit outdated. Well, Mr. Chairman, the Taiwanese government may be listening to you. It doesn't matter. In Southeast Asia, as Jeffrey Lam said, South Korea is more advanced. It doesn't matter for me. Well, it's up to members to decide. First of all, do we have to go? Secondly, if we go, where should we choose? Perhaps members can think about this and we discuss this again next time. May I respond, Mr. Chairman? 10 years ago, back in around 2007-08, I led a duty visit to South Korea under the ITB panel. We observed their very prosperous IT industries. And in recent years, they have also developed very rapidly. We can review what we've observed. Well, for Belgium, their diamond, for example, it's very advanced, but that's very expensive. I myself cannot afford it. Well, Belgium is known as the heart of Europe. More politics can be found there. But of course, we can also go to Taiwan. Mr. Charles Mock, Mr. Chairman, recently I had exchanges with some Israeli friends. Geographically, they're farther away from us, but certain aspects are nearer to us. They have an external or outbound economy, but they don't have a strong motherland behind it. USA, or maybe USA, but the USA is not surrounding it. USA is very far away from Israel. In terms of R&D, well, in a moment we're going to discuss R&D. In terms of R&D, to a certain extent, they are more similar to us. And recently, some friends tried to examine their ability to raise funds. They're very strong in that regard. Just last week, there are a few major conferences with representatives from them. They're very interested to share their experience with us, for example, with Hong Kong. And they're very interested in financing activities, for example, in China. So we can visit Israel. All right, so these ideas have been thrown out to us. So members, you can go back and examine this issue. And first of all, we have to decide whether we should go. Mr. Chairman, can you contact the Israeli side and ask them, what if we decide to visit them? Can they make arrangements? Or at this stage, should we obtain some information first? Be it Belgium or Israel, we should obtain more information first for detailed discussion. Well, next week I'll meet with the Israeli representatives. I can obtain information from them. And then we should get some information from South Korea as well. All right. Next item on the agenda, item 3. Well, Mr. Chairman, you can ask the Commissioner, because she did visit Israel. Did she give us something after that visit? Do you remember? I can ask her. All right, item 3 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. We have 3 papers. The administration's paper on United Nations Sanctions, Somalia Amendment Number 2 Regulation 2013. It's paper 166-01. And then the administration's paper on the 16th plenary of the Hong Kong Guangdong Cooperation Joint Conference. It's paper 171-01. And then a letter from Mr. Dennis Kwok on issues relating to the operation of the dedicated fund on branding, upgrading, and domestic sales. So we've received that letter. And then we also received a written reply to Mr. Dennis Kwok's letter. It's paper 239. Mr. Dennis Kwok, the Secretariat has also already written to the government, suggesting that they discuss this with us in December. The government told us that they're actually prepared to discuss the issue with us in the first quarter of 2014. So perhaps your letter can be taken up together with that discussion. All right, Mr. Chairman. Item 4 on the agenda, date of next meeting and items for discussion. The next meeting will be held on the 17th of December, 2:30 p.m. Items for discussion, proposed creation of 1 supernumerary post at Assistant Director level for the Intellectual Property Department, and then promotion of inward investment. So item number 1 and item number 2 on the list of outstanding items. And then there will be a visit on the 12th of December. We're invited to visit Science Park at 12:15 on that day. Before the visit, Ms. Wong, the Commissioner, has actually invited us to lunch. I hope that you can participate enthusiastically. Up to this moment, 6 members have signed up. Item 5 on the agenda, extension of the operation of Research and Development Center. First of all, I'd like to welcome the representatives of the government. On behalf of the panel on Commerce and Industry, I'd like to thank you for the excellent gifts. Thank you very much. Well, you can distribute them. We have a lot of these gifts. Do we have to make declarations? I don't think so. Commissioner, are you going to introduce the paper to us?
You remember that last June, that's 2012, we did a 5-year review regarding the progress of the various R&D centers. So that was last June. And we had 2, the automotive part and the nano part. They already exceeded the 15% contribution target. So members agreed that there operation period would be extended to the 31st of March 2017, and FC also gave his blessing. But then for two others, the Hong Kong RETA and the LSCM, because they only achieved 12%, and we agreed that we will observe for 2 more years until 2013. Now, because they would have to, well, they already reached the revised target of 18%. So in June this year, we also had a review, and I'm happy to report that the two centers have exceeded the required level of 18%. And for RETA, they achieved 25.6%, and for LSCM, 18.1%. Now, apart from these very important criteria, we also looked at the other indicators, and we are of the view that they are doing a good job. Now, for new items or for various tests or trials or commercialization, they have done pretty well. So we are here today to ask members to extend their operation until the 31st of March 2017, in line with the Nano Center and the Automotive Parts Center. And we need 40 plus million and 57 million, so a total of a bit more than 100 million. Now, we have asked the various CEOs to attend the meeting today, and if you have questions, we are most happy to answer them. I forgot to welcome Mr. Johan Wong, Deputy Commissioner for INT, and then Mr. Frank Zhang, Assistant Commissioner for Innovation and Technology Funding Schemes, and then Mr. Edwin Kay, the CEO for the RETA, and then Mr. Simon Wong, Hong Kong R&D Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management. So we have a member, Mr. Low, to ask the first question. Now, the two centers, and if we look at the figures, and if we look at the level of support from the trade, they are making progress, and they have met their mark. So the LSCM, well, only just made it, and the RETA, well, really overshot the figure, 25 versus the required 18. So if you simply look at their performance, they are making a progress, and I am in favor of extending the operation. Now, for RETA, you can say that this is a traditional trade for Hong Kong, but in the international arena, it plays an important role, and traditional trade can be given new incentives. And for places where the cost of production is high, for example, Italy, they would make the expensive apparel, and this is well-renowned. So for even these traditional professions, we can instill new energy into it, especially when we now have nanotechnology. So this is worth supporting. Now, for logistics and supply chain management, now this is something worth supporting too, because logistics is very crucial and requires the introduction of IT to boost its work, whether you're talking about sea, land, or air logistics. And we certainly want to be in the forefront in this global competition. Now, so these are two important assets of Hong Kong, and we are only talking about a very manageable amount. The only thing we should be asking ourselves is whether we are doing a good job here. Now, for LSCM, they are achieving the target, but I think the trade is expecting real application, real help, and not just regarding RFID technology. So can you give us a brief response? What is your direction for your research in order to make the center reach the expectation of the trade? The two CEOs, which one would like to take the question? Yes, please. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Now, the LSCM Center, now in the last 2 years, we looked at logistics and supply chain management and how they can boost the competitiveness of, well, the SMEs. Now, we will be looking at, first of all, the RFID technology, and then we can also extend this to other networks. And we also work in conjunction with the universities and we look at other systems where we can locate the carriers more accurately and how the trade can benefit from this. Now we know that those in the trade would like to see actual results, and I would like to give a few examples. Now in the last 2-3 years, we worked in connection with customs and excise, and we use a digital lock or e-lock based enabling system, enabling technology for such exercise. And with CUHK's help, we are helping the courier service, and the transaction is something like $20 billion. And we are able to make improvements. So right now, we can extend the cargo acceptance rate by 1 hour. And we will also have a reader system, or what we call an advanced truck arrival notice system, so that they can line up more easily. And we recommended a software to allow SMEs to do uploading work. This is going to help the trade directly. Mr. Kwok, can you be concise? Yes. Thank you for giving us the chance to share with you our work in the last 2-3 years. Now, we are not just looking at the trade, but also the need of the territory. Now, I worked together with Simon and helped the Toma group of hospitals to use RFID to trace elderly people with Alzheimer's disease. And again, we are also trying out different apparel that would help the elderly in case they fall. Now we are also producing products which will benefit Hong Kong. We are working with the Hong Kong Sports Institute to produce uniforms for the Asian Games, and then together with the Fire Service Department to improve their uniform when putting out fire, making them more flexible at work and to reduce the risks. Now again, we are having an award-winning facility in Vienna to help us improve our sensitivity when working with our hands. And these inventions are going to help Hong Kong in boosting our manufacturing, or I mean the textile industry. And then we are also looking at medical equipment improvements with high value addedness. Thank you very much, Mr. Mok. Thank you, Chair. Now, the various centers came to us last time and gave us reports, and I visited all 5 centers afterwards. And last week I went to the automotive center. Now, I listened to the problems that they raised, and now I don't have too many questions for them, but I'm just expressing my own comment. They are looking at certain hurdles they have to go through when they're doing R&D. So if you give them several years of operation, they thought they would have autonomy, but in fact they have committees that they have to go through, and also to the contract system, which would take them months. So in other words, they have to go through various hurdles, and these hurdles actually affect their productivity. Now, if they were to hire a research personnel or to buy certain machinery, again they find their hands tied, because they will have to undergo audit, and they will be asked questions such as how frequently do you use the machine, how many hours do you use it per week. But these are not washing machines. You cannot use such yardsticks, and they find themselves not given the approval. Now, if you look at the audit department, they would use a merit point system, but this is not desirable at all. Well, they are not factories, they are R&D centers. So they should not be measured using such yardsticks. Now, the indicators are needed, of course, but they have to be flexible. And you have to look at the items on a long-term basis, rather than just 1 or 2 years. Now, R&D items take time. Now, of course, I support their continuous operation. And now you've actually seen them operating for 6 years. And if you extend the contract longer, we mustn't micromanage them. You have to give them autonomy. Now, for the 2 centers that I mentioned, now I paid them a visit. That is Rita and LSCM. I can see that there's a lot of support from the trade, and for commercialization, they're already making good progress. And sometimes things cannot be measured in monetary terms. Because the medal winners, the cyclists and so on, also have to rely on the uniform they produce. Now, for LSCM, Simon told us that for the elderly homes as well as Customs Excise Department, they're all benefiting from their products. So you mustn't just look at things from a money angle. You have to strengthen their work. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I agree that we should find ways and means to assist them to liaise more with industry and participate more in their work, such that they will be sustainable. I believe the Commission can be more far-sighted in its long-term support for the industries, wherein when appropriate restrictions should be relaxed so that they can perform well. If you monitor them too stringently, it may be counterproductive. They did have some feedback, so I just want to reflect their views to you. Who would like to respond? Commissioner? I think Mr. Mock has pointed out a persistent struggle within ourselves. We would like to be more concise and precise. That's one aspect. At the same time, we have to protect public money. So, always we'd like to strike a balance, and we've been working very hard. I believe procedurally we've been very courageous. In the next year, the Innovation and Technology Fund will be conducting a review on its 15th anniversary. As regards possible relaxations and scope of improvement, I believe we should have more GRED. I agree with Mr. Mock. I agree that money should be of secondary importance only. We would like to give genuine support to the industry, and the social functions of the industry are more important. Next, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Well, this question is for the Commissioner, not for the two guests. For the sake of sustainability, we can support their proposal. Now, for the 5 R&D centers, you can, of course, pressurize them very heavily such that they'll produce results. But honestly speaking, there are also officials. There are not policy makings. They are not policy makers. In terms of administrative and vetting procedures, you may be more familiar than they. Can you adopt a market approach? You now have 5 centers. Well, broadly speaking, you may be conducting reviews once every 5 years, and maybe on the 6th year, you can have a replacement. That means if you keep 5 or 6 centers, the last one in the cycle will be eliminated. I mean, in the long run, you have to consider the system itself. The center with the lowest participation and the least performance can be eliminated. Well, even the URA now have a demand-led approach. A few years ago, I think starting from the time of Wong Sek-kei, you got these 5 major industries. So you have 5 centers. Now, should you build in a revolving door such that centers can go in and out of your system? Back in the time of Wong Sek-kei, they have chosen these 5 industries. Anyway, you erect a flag or you hoist a flag. Maybe once every 3 years, you can call for new entrants. I'm thinking of a system. Commissioner, thank you. Mr. Sin, in fact, under the existing system, centers can be included or excluded. Otherwise, we won't get this 2-year observation period. Well, in the last review, their scores were only 12 point something. We told them that if they're unable to reach 18% without a good explanation, well, of course, financial turmoil and SARS can be defenses. So, we did have a revolving door. Fortunately, 2 of the centers performed very well, and even for the LSCM, in terms of customs and excise and other services is almost the best. Mr. Sin suggested that the least performing center should be eliminated. I would like to keep flexibility. If all 5 centers perform very well, then even the one at the bottom is a good performer. So why should it be eliminated? So even under the present system, we have inclusion and exclusion already. Well, 2 of the centers failed to achieve 18%. We did tell the electrical that there's a possibility that the 2 centers would be closed. But now I'm not worried at all. Well, there is a system with inclusion and exclusion, but up to this moment we have not eliminated any center. A 6th one has not been entertained. So what I'm suggesting is that you should have a system to include new entrants and exclude the poor performance. The 6th center may be performing even better than these 5. Well, we did take note of the prevailing situation. Still, we would like to keep these 5. These 5 industries are most needed by Hong Kong. Mr. Chung Kok Pan, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to declare that I was once a member of the board of directors of LSEM. I've withdrawn from the board now. It takes time to do R&D. You can see that in the first few years, 2 of the centers did not perform very well at the beginning, but they caught up very quickly. Just now, Mr. Sin Chung Kai said that a 6th center may be performing well as well. But then for R&D, it always takes time. It's impossible for any center to be performing well in the initial years. Now, we invest less than 1% of our GDP in R&D. Commissioner, would you be bolder in applying for more resources so that they can perform better? And then I have some questions for the 2 CEOs. Now, the number of R&D projects have increased. Do you have enough manpower? For LSCM, there's a great deal of crossover, actually. And then NAMI can also have crossover programs. Mr. Chung, in the July review, we do intend to invest more in the centers. Concerning the ratio between R&D and GDP, the ITF only takes up a very small amount of funding. 80% of the funding comes from the universities, and we support the applied science and technology of the universities. But then the number of research personnel in the universities is rather fixed, because for many years we've only got 6 universities engaged in R&D. And some companies do have very good potential. In recent times, we reviewed our SME programs and discovered a great deal of constraints in those programs. If we have any new suggestions, we'll first consult this panel. I do support the crossover concept as mentioned by Mr. Chung. In the past few years, our Commission has worked very, very hard to conduct review meetings once every few months together with the centers to share experience, etc. In a moment, the CEOs can tell you that we've actually started collaboration among the centers. Elderly services is one example. CEOs, now we're working very hard on making good use of our existing resources. We would like to maximize our existing resources and personnel, and then we'll try to select those projects that will most benefit Hong Kong. To a certain extent, we need to have more manpower and resources. As at this stage, the Commission has been very supportive. They have tried as far as possible to give us resources. A bigger challenge is R&D personnel. R&D has a very short history in Hong Kong. The number of talents and amount of interests are still on the low side. So we need to have more impetus in that regard. Just recently, we got this program under 3 centers. Perhaps in a moment we can have more details about the recent project for elderly services. In recent times, that project has sparked a great deal of interest in society. We had reports in TV programs as well as newspapers. We're now designing more such projects. Mr. Wong, Mr. Simon Wong, let me supplement. Yes, we don't have sufficient manpower. That's an objective fact. After all, we're a city. Secondly, not that many people are dedicated to R&D. Many of them have pressure from their families. They're worried about their career, their prospects, and so forth. Under that pretext, we're working on 2 fronts. First of all, we work on our resources. We do collaborate with all the 6 universities. At the moment, universities plus our centers have been supporting 200-odd R&D personnel. And among the various centers, we try to match one another's effort. For example, with ASTRI and NAMI, we succeeded in producing new products for the elders. So we're taking care of the elders at the moment. The ASTRI and the PolyU have been working on possible electronic devices that are helpful to our elders. We don't have sufficient professionals and talents at the moment. So how are we going to make good use of this limited number of personnel? And then 5 universities with their different R&D personnel are working on 5 independent projects to work out e-devices to assist the elders. So we'll try to assume a leading role. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, all along, we've been criticizing Hong Kong for its low investment in R&D. Even now, resources for R&D have not been enough. So I'd like the Commission to work harder. I'm not asking you to raise funds and then dump the money into the sea. I would like you to apply your resources to commercialize products and economic impetus.
Now we have the two CEOs here today. Now, how do you work with the actual factory owners? How do you turn your R&D into actual use? How are the R&D actually applied? So that's something I'd like to know more. Now, secondly, for the Commissioner, now a review in only 15 years, isn't this too long a time? Because in 15 years, you'll have several generations of R&D improvement. So in terms of R&D, 3 years is already a long time. So look at the new generation of smartphones and so on. They appear very frequently. So 15 years is a very long time. I would probably lose all my hair by then. So yes, I'd like to know more. Mr. Wong, it is not that we only review once every 15 years. No, we regularly do our reviews. So for the R&D centers, we come here every year. And for the government pilot schemes, we also regularly modify and make improvements. Now, the 15 years is the time, or that was about 15 years ago in 1999, we were given a sum of $5 billion, and we actually spent more than that, and we had a lot of interest receipts, and so we actually spent more than we were given, and now we are down to $1 billion. Now we reckon that in about a year's time, we may have to stop dishing out funds, and so we have to come here to apply for another injection of funds. And this is going to be the first time for this kind of IT, R&D injection. And because of that, we are duty-bound to give you a review or a report on what happened in the last 15 years. Now, the two CEOs. Now, how do we commercialize our R&D results? Now, in fact, every year we have a 3-month campaign working with various factory owners and SMEs. We got in touch with them, understanding how they work and what they need and what problems they're facing and how we can help in terms of R&D. Now, during this 3-month period where we have interviews and questionnaires, we will develop major guidelines for our R&D directions. Now, for example, we've heard many factory owners want to have a sustainable development and green development. So these are questions given to us, and we will proceed with our R&D. Some wanted to be energy saving or water saving, because these utility bills are getting pretty expensive, and they also want to work in collaboration with other countries. So these are topics given to us. Now, the factory owners and the trade representatives will become our clients, because our R&D will work to meet their needs. And this is a very useful way to proceed. And this is what we will continue to do. Now, we also work in conjunction with counterparts in the mainland and overseas. For example, India, Japan, or even USA. These countries actually bought our products because we worked together with them, and they found that our products are actually needed by them. And we also work with the end users. For example, those in the States, in Australia and Europe, and they will let us know what they need, and so we go back to the factory and produce what they need. Mr. Wong? Yes. Now we have two layers. First of all, close cooperation with the factories, with the electronics or EI or ETA factories. Now they have to produce the products. And secondly, the supply chain. Of course, we serve the logistics trade, but in fact for retail, they also have to use RFID. And at the beginning of the year, we had a roadshow with IoT and other areas for now RFID. If you face problems, you can come to us. If you need anything, you can also come to us. And we want to help the service industry as well as the other factors or sectors. Now, for the construction industry as well, we are going to boost the technology and the technical side of things. Now, we may be a bit slow in commercialization because when we do the actual labels, we may not be able to work so quickly, but our read abilities can be applied by the retail industry, and these readers will be done by factories, and these can help some of our pillar industries. Madam Chang. Now, thank you, Chair. Now, the amount Hong Kong spends on R&D is really very little, not even 1%. And if you look at neighboring regions, if they are interested in manufacturing, they will put in more money than just a fraction of a percentage point. So I don't think Hong Kong is really determined to develop such a manufacturing sector. Now, we have these centers set up, and the aim is to help these manufacturing industries. But how many do we have left? So, if you think of it this way, I came from the industrial sector. Now, if you look to the future, what sort of manufacturing opportunities do we have? Now, I've been to New Jersey and saw the Bell Lab, and they pumped in a certain amount of money to develop the fiber optics industry, and some centers are doing biomedical industry. So they are moving ahead in these areas. But coming back to Hong Kong, we are not doing that as well. We don't even know where to go to for our study tours. So we have no direction. Now, for R&D, you have to have a common goal. Is it traditional Chinese medicine? So what is our vision? Do we want to become a fashion center in the Far East, for example? So this small amount of money is hardly enough. Now, I share the plight of the two CEOs. Now, you want to extend the operation for 2 years. But what will happen after 2 years? R&D for only 2 years? And then it will expire? No, they cannot do things with such short terms of of a time frame, and they're only asking for a bit more than 100 million. So I fully support R&D, but as the term suggests, research and development, you have to have development after doing research. Now, we have an economic study forum or panel. Now, I don't know how they work in conjunction with you or what vision you share for the future. Now, we must have these areas. Now, coming to logistics, for example, air freight. Now, of course, there's a future for this. Now, I have met with the Cathay CEO. I was told that the freight cargo has dropped very significantly. Now, but you want to work on research on apparel, garments, and so on. But we have a lot of background. For example, Chairman, you are in this particular sector. You are from this area, and you are a very good fashion model. Now, for nanotechnology, again, we are doing pretty well. But how are we going to make use of this technology? Now, so who is taking the lead? Now, I don't see any. We need to move in one and the same direction: manpower, funding, and research. So, Chairman, now I will support this exercise, of course, but at the same time, I think you can ask Mr. Gregory So to come along. Now, how should we proceed? How should the government tackle this issue? Otherwise, we will just be moving along in vain, wasting our energy. Now, we need to have a sense of satisfaction. But if the work we do is not appreciated and is not actually sold or applied, then we won't have a sense of achievement. So can I suggest to ask the Secretary to come along? Now, what needs to be done? What direction should we have in manufacturing? And also ask Mr. Victor Low to come along. Okay, I don't think you need to respond to my points. I'm just expressing my opinion. Now, for the target, for where to go to, I was only asking where members want to go. Emily Lau. Yes. Now, I think the Commissioner can give us some suggestions. Now, as mentioned by other members, we are setting aside an amount too small for Hong Kong. Now, other civil servants will envy you, the CEOs. Whenever you come here, you will get a lot of funding very easily from the members. But here, you are all given support. So it's very easy to get funding. But what is coming out of this? Now, the members are getting impatient. Now, as Madam Cheung was saying just now, now you have no manufacturing sector, so what sort of R&D are you doing? How are you going to boost the economic development of Hong Kong? If you ask for funding, we can give you the money, but what are you going to use the money for? Now, we heard from the two CEOs about manpower or talents. Now, we've been to Singapore. Now, they absorb or attract a lot of talents and give them right of abode immediately. Now, so I have a question. either for a commissioner or the CEO. Now, sometimes they feel certain pressure or they feel that there is no future. But what is to be done?
We believe that there's good future and conditions of service in R&D. Is that our thinking? Then should we attract more talents from overseas? Well, the two CEOs have heard that there'll be money. Councillors will support the funding applications. But what directions do we have, as Dr. Chang Lai-wan asked? Mr. Chairman, whether we're going to Israel or any other jurisdiction, we must let people understand that they have prospects in R&D. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, this is reality. Hong Kong emphasizes too much on service industries and financial services. As a result, our students consider those trades and industries as giving them more prospect and future. As for manufacturing, industries, and so forth, we shouldn't be selling cheap products by producing a lot of products, that is, by way of mass production. I think rather we should produce more sophisticated products with higher quality. As councillors are saying, the R&D centers won't have financial problems. It's just that every year they have to tell us what they will do under the budget. So long as they have good plans and good projects, we'll support them financially. But of course, we'll have to guard against abuse as well. Because we're using public money, we have to make sure that the projects are worthwhile and the projects do have good opportunities of succeeding before we assist them. In recent years, our R&D centers may not be very big when compared with the whole market. We still want to create a bigger pie. Our critical mass is not big enough. I can't think of the Chinese version. Anyway, our market is not big enough. For so many years, we only have 6 universities doing R&D with a 6% productivity. The overall impact on our GDP is not huge. That is reality. Now let's look back at these 2 centers. For the first 5 years, 51 projects were carried out by Hong Kong RITA. But just in the past year, 2 years, we got 33 projects. For LSCM, 2 in 5 years, and then just in the past 2 years, 18. So their prospect is good. We have to work very, very hard, although we're restricted by reality. In my view, a society shouldn't be too concentrated on certain industries. Now, we're going to have the 3rd phase. We would like to attract more talents. Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Dennis Kwok. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I very much understand the agitation of Dr. Chang Lai-wan. Well, we don't invest enough in R&D. Let me give you some data. At present, R&D in Hong Kong only amount to 0.8% of GDP. Japan 3.67%. South Korea 3.74%. Singapore 2.2%. Israel 4.2%. So the other jurisdictions are spending many more votes on R&D than we. So we're already far lagging behind. We really have to work very hard. If we put so little resources in it, the critical mass will remain small. The critical mass will still be very small. You're already lagging behind. You spend so much money on R&D, so you won't be able to attain the result. We talked to Janet, the commissioner, many times. You should be bolder. You shouldn't adopt a fragmented approach. In fact, your job is quite easy. Perhaps you're afraid that we'll scold you for asking for so much funding. Anyway, you should spend more on R&D. That's the position of the Civic Party. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, in fact, I am very grateful for the great support offered by councillors. In fact, I do enjoy a very special status. I'm very grateful for that. Resource-wise, I'm very grateful to the LegCo. The government is very supportive of us. As a vetting authority for funding, we have to grasp certain principles very tightly. For each and every project, we have a lot of experts to vet it, not just experts from our commission, but experts from the academia. For any project that exceeds $3 million, I personally peruse them. Now, frankly speaking, if the quality of a particular project cannot pass a certain standard, then honestly speaking, I really cannot approve it. And we also avoided, Commissioner, sorry, you also admit that overall speaking, Hong Kong is investing too little in R&D when compared with other jurisdictions. Do you agree to this point? Yes, I agree. So you also agree that that shouldn't be the case. More should be spent on R&D, right? I absolutely agree. The sum is the sum. So what's the cause of the problem? You want to do it, we want to do it. Who's standing in our way? Well, nobody is standing in our way. The crux of the problem is the structure of Hong Kong's economy. 90% of Hong Kong's economy belong to the financial services industry and the service industries. We're already the international financial center. I think Dr. Chong's point is correct. Economically, is it true that we cannot undergo a transformation? Is it that other than the financial services, we don't have any opportunity in other trades and industries? Well, perhaps I shouldn't mention the financial services industry as an example. I believe members have all heard me explain a few times that we don't have a base for our production industry. We don't have a defense industry. Hong Kong is a city. We cannot compare ourselves to South Korea and Israel, which are countries. A city is different from a country. The Deputy Secretary can elaborate in a moment. Now let's compare Hong Kong with London, which is also a city. Do you have any data for their R&D investment? Here I don't have exact figures, but previously we dug up certain information on the UK. The UK is investing 1.7% of its GDP in R&D. London alone, around 0.2%. As the Commissioner mentioned just now, we cannot measure a city with the same yardstick for a country. Well, I think we need to go back and verify these data. Well, I think we're very seriously overrun. Well, time's up. We're overrun by more than half an hour. The Commissioner has already heard us. All of us support the funding proposal, or rather, support the extension proposal. In my opinion, the government also has a responsibility to bear. The audit commission is just like secret policemen. If they are performing well, you should allow them to continue. You must not count each and every cent with them. I'm in the garment industry and the retail industry. Concerning the remarks of the two CEOs just now, well, they mentioned color matching, hand feel, etc., etc. FRFI would also like to do something for the retail industry. I'm sitting here for quite some time already. Nobody came to talk to me. You should talk to the manufacturers and manufacturers associations more. I think they are very interested in commercialization of R&D results. We're overrun. Mr. Chairman, but we should only finish at 4:30 p.m. Oh, but we have 2 more items to go, Dr. Chang. Can I ask one more question? Please do that in writing. No more time for us. All right, next item on the agenda. Progress report of the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification. Commissioner, welcome you again. You continue to serve us in this discussion. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Bella Ho, Acting Executive Administrator from the Innovation and Technology Commission, and Mr. Kesson Lee, Secretary General for the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification. Commissioner, in 2009, we discovered that testing and certification would have very good prospects, so we established the Council. In just over half a year's time, the Council proposed a 3-year action plan that is market-led. They told us how to promote the testing and certification industry. In March this year, we came to this panel to report to you, and very quickly, 3 years have elapsed. We reported then to you what we achieved. We're very grateful to members for their support at that meeting. Now, we're very certain that long-term and sustainable promotion is necessary for testing and certification. So we'd like to urge this panel to support Mr. Lee's post by converting it from a supernumerary post to a permanent post. With member support, we'll later go to the Establishment Subcommittee to submit our application. Today we have this opportunity to report to you the latest situation. Again, the situation is satisfactory. In 2009, at the starting point, the proceeds stood as $8.6 billion. In 2011, that jumped to over $20 billion. And after 2009, we still had certain aftermath impact of the financial tsunami. So we're very satisfied with their achievements. Our colleagues are here to answer members' questions today.
Mr. Chong. Now, in paragraph 7 of the paper, it mentions strengthening the recognition of our accreditation service as well as cooperation with the Pacific accreditation cooperation. But what about with the mainland? Is there any reciprocal arrangement? Now, for the Asian Pacific region, we have Madam Ho as well as another colleague briefing us on the CEPA arrangement with China. Now, for the Asia Pacific accreditation cooperation already includes the mainland. So we have signed a reciprocal agreement with them. Now, under CEPA, for 2011, we have CEPA 7 to step up testing and certification. Now, for Hong Kong, we have 10 laboratories in Hong Kong with HKCCC recognition, and 4 laboratories have again signed a memorandum of agreement with China. So the testing and certification in Hong Kong can be recognized and accepted in China, or are we only talking about only the 4 areas for Chinese material and so on? Now, in fact, under the 5th plenary session, we are having a trial period in Guangdong province for food manufactured or processed in Hong Kong, and they can be tested in China. Now, but for the 4 particular items you mentioned, whether we have reciprocal arrangement is something yet to be done at a later stage during the CEPA 10 agreement. Now, for liaison with China, how much time is needed? Now, for textiles, now we have a big market for certification and the demand is very big. Can this be done within the CEPA umbrella? Now, for CEPA 10, signed only in August to be implemented next year. Now, we are discussing the implementation details. Now, whether we can do this in CEPA 11 or 12 is something yet to be negotiated with the central government to allow us to do testing and certification in China. Mr. Wong. I have observed that for testing and certification and realize that it's very important because for a certain product with tortoise in it, and the product was found to be lacking in any tortoise ingredient at all, and so the company was affected very, very severely. But then it was tested afterwards that the tortoise product does contain the animal, but the company already suffered a lot as a result. Now, my question is, for the testing and certification work in Hong Kong, you have different types of companies in Hong Kong. How can you be entirely fair so that different companies will not be adversely affected because of different standards? Now, thank you for your question. Now, in our IT office, we have a Hong Kong sub-office for recognition work, which is voluntary in nature. Now, we have different standards to do accreditation for laboratories. Now, if it's formally accredited, these laboratories should have reached a certain standard. So these laboratories are definitely reliable, and if they conducted testings, and if people are not happy with them, we have a mechanism to handle the case. For example, if the testing results are not accurate or giving rise to any misunderstanding, we have mechanisms in place and even penalties in place. But otherwise, I mean, of course, there are laboratories not fully accredited by ourselves. I don't think my question is answered. Now, to go back to the example I cited, you cannot say that the former testing laboratory is not fully accredited. That was a very reputable body associated with the university. But a testing center A tested it, but laboratory B also tested it, but then the results are vastly different. So the tortoise product does not contain tortoise. Of course, I won't eat them. And the coupons that I have on hand, I will ask for reimbursement. But finally, we have a different result. Yes, the product does contain tortoise, and even quality tortoise. So my question, or the crux of my question, is that under such situation, this testing and certification bureau or center or council, now what sort of status does it have? And if you have results which are contrary to the truth, what sort of mechanisms or measures do you have to deter any such false proclamation of results by laboratories? Now, Mr. Wong, now if you are talking about the system, we have to be authentic and fair, and if a certain laboratory undertakes a testing, they have to be held responsible for the results. And if they've messed up or somehow make a false report, and if we have complaints, then of course we will follow up, because sometimes there might be misunderstanding in the process. If at the end of the day the laboratory is fully responsible, then they may have the name struck off from our register because they're using our name, the council's name. And every year we do strike out people's or operators' name from our register. But maybe there is a complicated picture, whether you're testing only item A or B or C or mixture. There might be misunderstanding there. Now, because the affected company is very severely affected already. Mr. Mok. Now, the Productivity Council discussed the lab test 1 together with the Science Park and explained to us. Now, they have done work which people may not be aware of, even those in the trade. Now, they may have bought a lot of testing and certification machines and have attracted overseas customers to use them. And they can actually help local industries too. But if you look at the 6 items that you mentioned, in fact, it covers a very wide area. Now, how can you be sure that you are doing everything correctly? Now, for IT, for example, you are going to pursue ISO 27001, but do you have anything else? But only for 27001, what is your ultimate goal? Are you going to do it on your own, or are you going to train companies in the trade so that they can do the work? And then for public bodies such as the Productivity Council, they will have software testing done. And this is something needed. But would there be corresponding testing and certification? Now, this can be used for security purpose, I'm sure, but there may be other applications as well. And if this certification work is there or is established, how are you going to make the companies want to use your scheme? What incentives are there? So I'm just looking further ahead and I'm asking these questions. Now, Mr. Mok, your question about the 6 areas is really a very wide area, 6 trades, and we do not claim to know everything. Now, we will invite all the relevant experts to form our expert panels to see which is worth doing and which is not worth doing. Now, for the IT side, maybe I ask my colleague to supplement. Now, for information technology, we look at software testing, and we realize that there are many questions to be resolved. Now, for example, is there a need in society? How competitive is the work? Because there are other providers, and they can have very cheap manpower. And as Mr. Mok was saying, the Productivity Council has done a third-party software center with the Pearl River Delta area. And we want to look at this, probe more deeply into this, because after all, this is relatively new in Hong Kong. Now, for ISO 27001, we have an expert panel established, and this is relatively new for Hong Kong. And we hope that in the coming year, when we have pamphlets printed, then we can promote this even more. And when we have the certification treatment available, then that would be good. Because right now we don't have any such certification for 27001. Now we will work with Ojo for this particular area.
You want to supplement? Mr. Chairman, in the budget of the CTC every year, resources will be allocated for promotion and publicity. Of course, under the ITF, We also welcome general support programs. We would like to match the effort of the CTC. If extra resources are required, the ITF is happy to cooperate. It is strange that they mention uncertainties for testing and certification, but the Productivity Council apparently does not seem to need extra resources. Perhaps you should liaise with them to provide us with a comprehensive answer on software testing. As for ISO 27001, I do not know what sort of collaboration projects you have with the industry, but trade associations, chambers of commerce, and IT associations do not have much exchanges among them. If I'm wrong, please rectify me. Please liaise with them as soon as possible. Commissioner, you've already heard our members. I think there's a great deal of room for development for testing. But you have to guard against mismatch, which may do a great deal of harm. If there are no further comments, we'll proceed to the next item on the agenda. Sorry, have you heard our members? We support you. Thank you very much. Mr. Kwok, you still have questions? Well, for the next item. All right, next item. Establishment of the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Wuhan. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Daniel Chang, Deputy Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, Ms. Joyce Tam, Director, Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Shanghai, and Ms. Noelle Zhang, Principal Assistant Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs. Welcome, Mr. Chang. Are you going to take us through the paper? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This paper is mainly to explain to you our proposal for the establishment of a permanent post for the Hong Kong ETO in Wuhan, and we're consulting you. The ETO in Wuhan was announced in this year's policy address. Wuhan is the capital of Hubei province and is actually a central city in the central part of China, is a transport hub with a stable economy. It's also connected with Hong Kong in terms of logistics. We're mutually complementary. If Hong Kong can grasp development opportunities in the central part of China, an ETO in Wuhan will benefit us. As regards the establishment and manpower level, the Wuhan ETO will be similar to other ETOs on the mainland. This is to enhance Hong Kong's economic ties and collaboration with the mainland, to attract investment and to support Hong Kong residents and Hong Kong enterprises on the mainland, and to enhance the mutual liaison and understanding between Hong Kong and Wuhan. This Wuhan ETO is expected to be commissioned in the fourth quarter of 2014. Therefore, we propose that starting from the 1st of April 2014, under the Constitution and Mainland Affairs, we establish this AOSGC post. We'd like to have the support of the panel. With your support, we'll proceed to the ESC on the 11th of December. Thank you. Members, any questions? Mr. Dennis Kwok. Mr. Chairman, may I refer you to paragraph 6F of the paper. One of the functions of the ETO, as mentioned there, is to support Hong Kong enterprises and Hong Kong residents in their business and work in that region. When they have problems, you should help them. However, in the past, we received complaints to the effect that our ETOs have not been able to assist Hong Kong enterprises or entrepreneurs when they encounter difficulties with the mainland officials. You're unable to help them. If it is simply for the promotion of economic development and promotion, the TDC is already doing the job. We don't need you. If you establish an ETO, we would like you to assist Hong Kong residents and enterprises, particularly when they encounter difficulties in terms of litigation and mainland officials. We would like you to assist them. So in this regard, we'd like you to give us a clear undertaking. Deputy Secretary, Mr. Chairman, in terms of support for Hong Kong residents and Hong Kong businessmen, our ETOs have been working even harder than our mainland authorities. We have reflected the views of the business sector to the mainland authorities at an equivalent level with the mainland authorities. In recent events, we did positively reflect Hong Kong's views to our counterparts on the mainland, and we did resolve certain issues. And in recent times, we've enhanced our support for Hong Kong businessmen. Apart from the tasks that I mentioned, we've enhanced liaison and contact. And if anything affects Hong Kong businessmen, we have enhanced information collection and supportive services. In terms of taxation information, for example, we've enhanced information dissemination, and we also conducted quite many briefings for Hong Kong businessmen. As for individual complaints or requests for assistance, we'd like to, through our ETOs or the Constitution and Mainland Affairs, do referral work. We also followed up on those cases. So wherever enhancing our work, we would like to continue to improve. Now, when Hong Kong businessmen encounter problems or have queries and mainland authorities fail to assist them, but you succeeded in helping them, do you have such cases? As far as I know, we did have such cases. Sometimes when Hong Kong businessmen had exchanges with mainland authorities, they might find it helpful to obtain information from our ETOs. Sometimes misunderstandings were rectified. Today we have our colleague from the Shanghai ETO. Perhaps she can assist. Yes, Ms. Tam, I'd like to thank the member for his question. One of our major tasks at the moment is to assist Hong Kong businessmen in terms of information dissemination, exchanges, seminars, enhancement of flow of information, and so forth. Now, when Hong Kong businessmen encounter problems on the mainland, what will we do? We'll fetch the relevant mainland ministries or authorities. Sometimes we inquired on behalf of the Hong Kong businessmen concerned whether or not the procedures were correct, and sometimes further information was submitted to the mainland authorities so that they can further help the Hong Kong businessmen. And in certain cases, we did discuss with the mainland authorities concerned to find out solutions to assist the Hong Kong businessmen. So when necessary, we'll assist Hong Kong businessmen. Next, Mr. Ma Feng Kwok. Oh, he has left. Then Mr. Lam Tai Fai. I have two questions. First, I, of course, will not object to this proposal of setting up an ETO in Wuhan. Probably there is a need to do so. It's just like the FTZ. If our ETOs are successful, they'll be duplicated throughout mainland China. So I believe the Wuhan ETO won't be the last. But I'd like to draw some comparisons. Hubei, Henan, Hebei, Jiangxi, and Shanxi provinces will be covered by Wuhan ETO. Why don't you set up an ETO in Henan? Henan is the most populated provinces in China, and 1/10 of the food on the mainland is supplied by Henan. The Guangdong railway station is the busiest on the mainland in terms of passenger and goods transport, that is logistics. So it is most accessible. So why don't you set up an ETO in Guangzhou, governing or covering Wuhan and Henan? Maybe you tell me that in future there will be an ETO in Guangzhou. So number one, why do you choose Wuhan and not Guangzhou in Henan? Secondly, I'm worried a bit about this post. I'm worried about continuity. We know so well the Beijing ETO. Ms. Chu has retired. And then Pun Taiping in Sichuan has already been replaced. The director for the Guangdong ETO has also been replaced recently. We know that these ETOs are very important. For businessmen, you have to have good connections with the local governments and the local enterprises. So networking is very important. If you don't do networking well, doing business will be difficult. There will be difficulties in terms of coordination, business opportunities, etc. Well, 4 years is very short. So continuity is very important. Well, one officer has established networks and connections, and then he's transferred out of his post. Well, he may have just completed negotiations with certain concessions, certain provisions, and so forth, and suddenly he was transferred out of the post, and then we panic. Many Hong Kong businessmen have been served by these ETOs. You see, personal relationships and personal feelings are always mingled with business. Well, you say there are files and documents. Well, I'm sure your documentation work is very good, but personal relationships, personal feelings, networking, connections, etc. are the software. So how will you ensure that these software will be effective? So two questions.
Now, in the various provinces in central China, now which location do we pick to set up ETO Now, it's not easy. Now, we considered a number of factors. First of all, now, in the 6 provinces in central China, we looked at the overall national plan for regional development. And these different regions and different cities would play a different role. Now, we have said in the paper that Wuhan is a very central region. And geographically, or even if you look at the transportation network, the railway hub and the air routes, Wuhan stands out among the crowd. So it is a very important transportation hub. Now, we also looked at the needs of our Hong Kong entrepreneurs. And another thing is we looked at the local entrepreneurs in central China. Now, you mentioned Henan. Of course, that has its advantages. And it already enjoys the advantages. So the choice is not all or none choice. It's a relative importance that Wuhan has. Okay, now I do not want to be confrontational, Mr. Chairman. Now, we are trying to get into a big market. If you just look at the size of the population, for Hebei, I don't know, maybe about 60 million. But Henan is 100 million. So if you look at the GDP, it may not be the same. But if you look at just the size of the market, then, you know, Henan is much bigger. Now, and then if you look at the different trades, now, it is the central food store, agriculture, very important. For logistics, very important. But you talk about transportation. Now, if you've been there, the transportation in Henan is again a hub. It's very central. If you look at the frequency of the transportation vehicles, it's #1 in the country. So I do not think that Henan would lose out in terms of geographical location or transportation. It should not lose out to Wuhan. So as of today, at least, I'd like to know the criteria that you are using in choosing Wuhan. Are you going to go via Dalian or Heilongjiang or other criteria? So I am not convinced because your explanation is not entirely scientific. Now, these days we want everything to be transparent. Well, why not Chongqing, for example? I'm not asking you to move the center there, but my question is why Wuhan and not a more central area such as Henan? Or maybe you can give a written reply afterwards. Yes, because we're running out of time. I'm sorry. Mr. Ma. Now, I support the setting up of the ETO. Now, I have said this on different occasions. Now, you have so many overseas ETOs as well as mainland ETOs. Now, the functions do not include promotion of cultural exchange or cultural cooperation. Now, in mainland China, we have the National 12 5-year plan, as well as the development of culture as outlined in the October announcement. Now, so the culture or cultural heritage play a very important role. And I like to just draw members' attention to this area. If you look at the national direction, the openings are in the culture side as well as the economic side. It will also have a cultural angle. So why is it that we do not include this function for the ETOs? Now, Taiwan would have economic, trade, and culture included in its offices. And these offices, I know, are beginning to tackle these cultural issues, but then its personnel is not putting a focus on the culture aspect. And the new ETOs, if again it has the same emphasis, I really don't understand why. Yes, Mr. Ma has mentioned this point on previous occasions. I will certainly relay this point back to the Bureau. I just want to emphasize one point. Now, in name, it does not have the word culture in it. The actual functions definitely do include cultural promotion and cultural cooperation with the mainland. Now, maybe I ask my colleague to just elaborate on this point. Now, the question is, if your name does not include the word culture in it, if your title does not include this, it will leave the actual work to be decided by the office itself. But the whole of China does not know that you have this particular function, because the title does not contain the word culture, because you only have economic and trade in your title. So what we're suggesting that you should include the word culture in the title of your office. Your other examples of Shanghai and so on is neither here nor there. They are only doing it well, when the occasion calls for it and is not reflected correctly in the title. We certainly understand where you're coming from. And we pay visits not only to our economic and trade counterparts, we also visit the cultural counterparts. And we emphasize that we are the SAR government office set up here. And even though the name is limited to economic and trade, we are in fact responsible for all of government liaison work. And senior government cooperations for economic and trade, they will include culture as well. And we have also signed a memorandum of agreement on the cultural areas. So as far as our work is concerned, we have included cultural aspects. We have road shows and other exhibitions, and these are examples. You haven't answered my question still. If the name is not there, then the functions will suffer. So how do you address the problem? Okay, I think we are asking the government officials to bring this point back for further deliberation by the Bureau. Now, I share the view of Lam Tai Fai. Now, it's good to have an ETO in the center, and Chengzhou is probably a better choice than Wuhan. Now, this is from the commercial angle, but from the geographical angle, Chengzhou is a better choice than Wuhan. Now, if you want the Guangzhou office to take care of Wuhan, is by high-speed train 3 hours and 37 minutes. That's the quickest journey. So you can actually go there in the morning and have lunch there. Now, but that is not my question. Now, China's GDP ranks number 2 in the world. And we already have 4 ETOs. Now, for Europe, how many do we have? Now, but the overall GDP of Europe will not be less than China, because you're talking about the whole of Europe. But for the whole of Europe, how many offices do we have there? Only 2, is that right? London and Geneva, or Brussels. We have Brussels, Berlin, London, and Geneva. 4. Even with 4, now we are talking about another one in China, another ETO. Now you're from the Constitutional Affairs Bureau. Now if we are going to have one more ETO, okay, so you have one in China, but what about in other parts of the world? South America, for example. Donald Zhang previously visited there. But the world is so big, and China already has 4. Okay, maybe you can have 1 more, 2 or 3 more. But what about other parts of the world? How come you are only looking at the mainland? Now, my understanding is that the SAR government is looking not just at the mainland. We have a pretty global view, but in the Constitution and Mainland Affairs Bureau, we will continue with your suggestion. Now, maybe looking at it from a business angle, we have a lot more business opportunities in China, as opposed to, South America or Latin America. So to have more offices in China is a good thing for our Hong Kong entrepreneurs. Our investments in America or Latin or Central America or South America, they also have different languages. So I'll ask the, 2 more questions. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. The sustainability of creating this new post. So that's my concern. So can the government share with us to how do you ensure that the network is not broken as a result of a changeover in personnel? Now we are part of the civil service team, and of course we look at the system as well as possible handovers. And when colleagues move around, we have arrangements in place to conduct the handover. And the work does not rely entirely on 1 or 2 people. Now, in different provinces, the work continues. And we have cooperation examples. For example, for Hong Kong and Guangdong, we have a whole series of work continuing. And of course, the officer plays an important role, but we are relying more on the system to make sure that our work continues unabated. Now, if you have an ETO in China, if you are simply relying on the system, then you are saying that the person involved is not important, but that is not entirely true. I think in China especially, you have to do networking and liaising work, how to resolve conflicts. The person is very important, and the person has different abilities. Yes, I agree, especially in China. I think the people's skill is very important. The person is very important. Okay. So we are in favor, we are in agreement of having ETO in Wuhan.
All right. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. Why not in Guangdong? Why in Wuhan? Will you give us more information? All right. So thank you very much. Item 8 on the agenda, any other business? No other business. All right, meeting adjourned.